El maestro Werner Herzog, el doctor Lawrence Krauss. So I will share with the audience the rules of our conspiracy. Lo que estamos haciendo es que a través de una serie de películas y de libros que hemos tenido el gusto de vivir del maestro Herzog, saqué algunas, las voy a poner ustedes las pueden ver y con base en ello tendremos una conversación. Okay? So we want to start with Mexico.
A mí me gustaría hablar en español, pero a mí me falta práctica, desgraciadamente. And I appreciate the vibrant presence of Mexico. I live in Los Angeles, not really because of the film industry. I'm happily married in Los Angeles. My wife originally comes from Siberia, from Russia. But I live there, but sometimes I have the feeling this is all completely artificial. I have to take the car and I go to Tijuana. And Tijuana is really not the best city in Mexico. I love Oaxaca and San Cristobal and Guanajuato. I cross the border and I take a deep breath and I know finally real people. And then I take a tequila and talk a little bit and then I return. So
I remember that was my reaction. Yeah, exactly. The first time I visited Tijuana, I just thought, this is what California was like before they invented all the fake stuff.
Lawrence. Yes, but it's very good for my heart. And then when I'm home, I would read Juan Rulfo, Pedro Páramo. And then I'm normal again.
Great. As a physicist, what do you think about when he talks about real or about normal?
I've never heard Werner talk about normal. But real, I understand reality in very much the same way that Werner does. I think that it's perceived by the individual. There is a reality beyond, but we are all subject to the realization that we experience a slice of reality. And of course, one of the things to try and do of a great filmmaker like Werner is to show a different slice of reality so the rest of us realize that what we thought was real is not necessarily all there is.
And we have a great challenge now because with virtual reality and digital effects and photoshopping, there are realities created and we lose contact with our feet on the ground. This is why I tell all young people, travel on foot. Travel on foot, this is virtue. Read, travel on foot. Get connected with reality, and of course it's not only the technical things. When you look at WrestleMania is all choreographed, but it pretends to be a reality of fights. So, and it's very important that in filmmaking we have to find a new answer about reality and the real world, and we are not served with cinema verite. Cinema verite was the answer of the 1960s, and I keep enraging them by telling them this is the accountant's truth, and that really makes them angry. And they postulate, we should be completely reduced, we should be like a fly on the wall. I was in a conference in Amsterdam or so, and all of them were cinema verite, and I grabbed the microphone and I said, no, 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 we are directors, we should not be like flies on the wall, we should be like hornets. We are creators, we go out and we sting. And then everybody was angry with me, and I grabbed the microphone again, and I shouted out, Happy New Year's, losers.
But you know, physics, it's exactly the same attitude the scientists have. Scientists don't just record everything and just let it be there.
Yeah.
It's like from Galileo. You pierce all the irrelevant stuff and try and find the reality underneath. Scientists can only understand the world because we don't just accept everything and just watch it. We try to understand what's behind that, and I think that's the same.
And I modify reality and I modify truth, and I have tried and I have discovered almost all my life as a documentary filmmaker and as a feature filmmaker, I have been after a deeper stratum of truth. I call it the ecstasy of truth, the ecstatic truth, and that means you have to be inventive, you have to stage, you have to stylize, you have to do all sorts of things. And I hope, and there are many other young filmmakers now who follow this kind of thinking. They do it all in their own way. And I like to see that something is emerging now, and it's dictated by all the virtual realities.
Something that I really love about your work is that first once I read that you mentioned that every filmmaker was a liar. And then from liar you went to ecstatic truth. So I actually have seen an evolution in your thinking.
I'm careful about using the word liar. It's something else. It's intensifying truth, making it apparent. For example, Shakespeare famously said, the deepest truth is the most feigning. And I really am stunned. So that there were predecessors to what I hope will be ecstatic truth, much more in cinema, in literature, in everything.
You mentioned the word books when you were chatting with us in this conversation. But I also remember that you wrote something that the people that read books own the world. And then you keep talking about internet and television. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, I think those who travel on foot, to start with that again, will understand the world, because the world reveals itself to those who travel on foot. In the world also, the world of ideas, the world of storytelling, the world of the other reveals itself in reading books. And when you watch children who are too many hours on a laptop or on an iPad and into virtual realities, they have no nexus, no connection to the real world. So that's a very, very dangerous moment, and I try to speak up against it.
Every time I'm at Werner's house, I learn about a new book. I always come away learning about something I'd never read before, usually an obscure book that's very difficult to find, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yes,
so.
and I run my own film school, the Rogue Film School, some guerrilla-style film school which has no place and no time. I can do it here, I can do it on the mountaintop with 50 people or anywhere. And I keep telling them, read, 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 read. If you don't read, you will never be a great filmmaker.
Bravo. Having the chance to have both of you here, and I saw the film that you did with Richard Dawkins, and that I was impressed that you have Dr. Herzog there. And reading that he was first like an atheist, like his father, but then he really had a revolution, and he's a kind of a believer. But I would love to listen from both of you. He said that he envied religious people. I mean, that's provocative for Lawrence.
Well, I think what he said was, I envy the people who can get consolation from religion.
Exactly.
And because it's the easy way out. But I was amazed when Werner said that, because he never takes the easy way out. So why is, I disagree completely. So why should it be envied to remove all of the excitement of life and believe in a fairy tale?
Well, I have to be less specific than that. What is out there, the universe is hostile, and you know that.
We agree completely. The universe
it cannot care less about us.
It's trying to kill us most of the time.
Tries to kill us and whatever. So it's hostile, murderous, chaotic, and all these things. For example, I think it's very hard for people who are deaf, who cannot hear and cannot hear music, because music has a quality. Sometimes great music can be consolation. And also religion sometimes for some people can have consolation.
Oh, it does, for sure.
It does, and I envy people who have the possibilities, although I had a dramatic religious phase in my adolescence. but I'm not religious anymore since long time. I still have a distant echo of that time in me.
It seems to me, though, that we can get, but you just pointed out that we can get consolation in so many other things that I kind of think, people say religion is useful because it gives people consolation, it removes perhaps their fear of death, but if we can encourage people to get consolation in looking at an image of the sky and the beauty and the wonder of the universe in which we live, that's a consolation in reality, which seems to me to be so much deeper.
Yeah, but yes, but we should be careful about religious. We will speak another 48 hours. Yeah. But let me speak about consolation in filmmaking. Not long ago, I was asked to make a film about the catastrophic events of texting and driving.
Oh, yes.
And I said to AT&T, I do not do commercials. And they said, why not? And I said, I do not like the world of consumerism. I do not like it. There's something profoundly wrong, and my advice about changing the world is very easy. Every single one of us should not wait for the government or the International Climate Conference to set certain marks and set certain rules. Every single one of us can switch off the light switch quickly after you leave and run less water and drive less in the car. I drive only 10% in my car what I used to drive. Not everyone can do that, but many can, instead of traveling around, use Skype and speak to someone. And so we can save easily by consensus, everyone saving 25% energy, and it's there.
And at the end, you make these advertisements, no? From 0 to 1.
I only said, if it's not advertisement, and AT&T told me, this is not advertisement, you will even make a film that dissuades people from using it too much. And I said, yes, I can do that. And now the film was released on YouTube. On YouTube, everything over 8 minutes has no chance. It's because of the attention span of young people. The only things that really work on YouTube are cat videos, a crazy cat, but they have to be 60 seconds long only. So now I release a film 34 minutes long, and it had a monumental impact. It had immediately 3 million viewers who saw the entire 35. It's a heartbreaking film about catastrophic accidents. And many people say to me, you must have saved lives, you must have saved lives. I do not know, and it's an interesting question, because the curve of accidents was, in the last 4 years, going upwards, and in the last 1.5 years, vertically up. Over 1 million accidents, hundreds of thousands of fatalities, much more dangerous than drinking and driving. And people said, you must have saved a lot of lives. And I said, we cannot verify it. And that's a good question, because how can we quantify events that did not take place? How many times have we been out and we did not find the perfect wife for us because she left the plaza 5 minutes before we arrived? So the encounter never took place. How do we quantify it?
Well, you know, I think that there's some things you could never quantify, the missed opportunities perhaps, but you can quantify, I think, what the potential impact of lack of things happening, because with statistics, we can look at the curve and make projections with some uncertainty into the future, and if the slope of the curve changes, then we can say we have every expectation that there are fewer deaths than there would have been if you hadn't done that. So we can, again, there's uncertainty, but if you can look at this, you can look at the lack of increase of a curve and say, yes, you had an impact.
Absolutely.
Apparently, yes, it coincides that the curve changed after the film.
The lack of something happening is often...
Yes, the lack, but it doesn't prove anything. It's a gray
but
area.
But it's like Arthur Conan Doyle said, or Sherlock Holmes said, you know, about the dog in the night. The important thing is what happened to the dog in the night. And Watson said, what happened to the dog? Nothing happened. And he said, that's what's important.
Nothing happened to the dog, and that was the important thing.
Yeah, there are so many variables. But, well, one of the things of your work that have impressed me and helped me and shifting myself more was your confrontation first with fearless. You say that you have never feared any person, that that person haven't born, and that you have, please.
Well, the person to frighten me has not been born yet, it's true. But I think it has to do with how do you deal with your own death? How do you settle that? Then fear will eventually disappear. And I have been in very, very dangerous situations. I mean, real dangerous. And I have been arrested and imprisoned in Central Africa. And
They have tried to kill you.
Yes, I was shot at various times and not too long ago in Los Angeles. And I consider it part of the folklore there. I was shot right here under my belt, right here in the stomach, by some crazy person. But it's kind of folklore there. And nobody would believe it unless it had been caught on tape. It was during a BBC interview, and I wanted to finish the interview, but they hit the ground and they fled. So, and I said, well, this was not a significant bullet. And we actually finished then later on, and I was bleeding and so, but it was not significant.
But it's a relation with death. At
Yes,
the end,
and
what makes you fearless?
Yes, I realized that I was shot, but I just wanted to finish at least the sentence, which I couldn't because the sound man had hit the ground and was running then.
Doctor, you also have said that you try to avoid yourself. Could you elaborate a little bit when you see yourself in a mirror?
Well, yes, I think there's something wrong about this permanent self-reflection, and you have this building up of self and reflecting yourself in Facebook or in other things. I instinctively avoid to look at my eyes. Until today, I have a hard time to tell you the color of my eyes. I look in the mirror and I shave so that I don't cut myself, but I see I'm shaving here. But the color of my eyes is unknown to me. And this is one of the reasons why I do not like artists like Frida Kahlo. She's only exclusively interested in her own face and the costumes that she's wearing. And I do not like Cindy Sherman, the photographer, who comes and makes photos only about herself in various disguises. It doesn't interest me, and there's something unhealthy about it, and I try to avoid this unhealthy part of it. Much of filmmaking is unhealthy anyway because we are illusionists. And if you are an illusionist for 50 years non-stop, as I have been, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. And this is why I don't look into my own eyes.
But
Bravo.
yeah. It's a pity because I love looking into your eyes when I'm talking to you. But it's interesting to me, though, because when I think of some of the films that you've done, your presence is a vital part of it, more than some other filmmakers.
True, yes, and I'm aware of that. And I love everything that has to do with cinema, writing, directing, acting a villain in a film with Tom Cruise.
Which you were great in. You were great in
Yes,
that.
I'm frightening. I was paid for being as frightening as it gets, and I am frightening. And I enjoyed it. And Lawrence Krauss has a face like a villain. And I want to, in one of my next feature films, Lawrence Krauss will have to play a gangster in a small part.
I can't wait.
And I know you will look like a gangster, and I will make you good.
And from nothing will happen something, like your books.
Yeah.
That would be the high point for me.
One of the biggest lines that I have ever read in my life was written by you. Don't legislate stupidity. Please.
Well, it's actually not by me. I have to name the source. Jesse Ventura.
Okay.
Jesse
Yes.
Ventura was a WrestleMania wrestler.
Sure. Governor also.
Yes, and bodyguard of Rolling Stones, and then he became governor of Minnesota. And I liked him for his presence and for many things. And he was asked by journalists every year when spring comes, the people on snowmobiles are still driving across the ice on the lakes. And many of them break through because it has grown too thin and they drown. you have to do something. You have to start legislation. And Jesse Ventura moved to the press and said straight into a camera, you cannot legislate stupidity. And I love him for that. And I also love him for one thing that I like to hear. He said, win if you, when he spoke about wrestling, he said, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. But always cheat. What wonderful proverbial saying that is. And you have to translate it into filmmaking. I cheat as much as necessary. I create my own shooting permit. For example, in Fitzcarraldo, I was not allowed to move my ship on Rio Marañón. There were military camps, Rio Santiago, Rio Marañón. They even shot at me. And they said, you have no permit. I said, mi coronel, there was a colonel, mi coronel, yo tengo un permiso, but it's in Lima. And 3 days later I came and it was a 4-page document, beautifully written in antiquated government Spanish of the Chancellery, and it had stamps on it on the back, and it was signed by the President of the Republic, El Presidente de la República.
And you were the president.
Belaunde. And of course, I wrote this whole thing, and I signed it, and there was a stamp, the biggest stamp that we had was in German, and it said, whoever wants to acquire the copyright of this photo has to get in touch with this in this address. And it was also on this. And the coronel looked at it, and he handed it back, and he saluted, and he said, "Pásale."
You know, in the Rogue, I've been in Werner's Rogue Film School, and he tells me, he says to the young filmmakers, you have to learn how to pick locks. You have to learn how to break into places.
Forge documents, yeah.
Forge documents to make it happen.
Yes, you have to be able to break into a car, which I have done. A truck, the trucker stopped his car pretty much in front of my camera, in the middle of my scene. Went to the restaurant and I said, can you move it? No way, you idiots, and so I'm going to eat. So when he was in there to eat, I broke open his truck, I drove the truck 50 yards, filmed my scene, drove it back. He didn't even realize that the truck was moved. So you have to know how to steal a truck. You have to know how to forge a document.
Wow.
You have to expropriate a camera if nobody gives you the camera. Steal it from some surveillance in the bank or somewhere.
By the way, we just have 15 minutes and we have done like 18. So you cheat again. Un aplauso, por favor, para ellos. Doctor Werner Herzog, un aplauso al gran maestro.
Muchas gracias.
Lawrence Krauss.